Welcome, everyone, to our discussion on the West's failure to adjust to a multipolar world, as laid out by John Mearsheimer. It's fascinating how he argues that the Western powers, with all their liberal ideals, are now out of sync with global realities.
Absolutely. It's eye-opening how Mearsheimer points out that the West clings to outdated views even as other global players rise.
Yeah, it's like you're navigating with an old map when the landscape has totally changed. He really
Exactly.
emphasizes that relying solely on the liberal world order has left the West unprepared for today's multipolar environment.
Right. And he stresses that instead of adapting, the West continues to push the same agenda that once worked during a unipolar era, leading to some serious strategic missteps.
Exactly. And a pretty striking example he uses is NATO's role, especially in conflicts like the situation in Ukraine. He critiques how the alliance's actions, based on old doctrines, have ironically contributed to instability rather than resolving it.
Yep.
That part really stood out to me.
But isn't it a bit oversimplified to point fingers solely at NATO? I mean, the global nexus of power involves so many intertwined factors.
I get what you're saying. Mearsheimer does zoom in on NATO, but his main point is that the West refuses to adjust its overarching strategies. It's as if they're sticking with a playbook that clearly doesn't suit the shifting global game. It's
Right.
largely about that institutional stubbornness.
And then there's his critique of what he calls liberal delusions. It's kind of a wake-up call, questioning the automatic assumption that spreading democracy and liberal values guarantees stability.
Oh, absolutely. It's like he's challenging the notion that Western values are a universal remedy. Instead, he argues that this kind of thinking blinds policymakers to the harder, realpolitik aspects of international relations. It's a
Yeah,
reminder that
exactly.
strategies need to be grounded in power realities.
That makes sense. But don't you think dismissing the contributions of liberal values entirely might be a bit one-dimensional? After all, those values have underpinned many periods of global stability.
That's a valid point. Mearsheimer isn't saying liberal ideals are all bad, but he argues that when you base your entire strategic framework on them without adjustment, you risk severe miscalculations. It's like trying to use a screwdriver when you really need a wrench. You're using the right tool conceptually, but it might not get the job done. It's
I
really
see your
about the
point.
need for balance.
Exactly. It's essentially a call for a more pragmatic approach, one where you mix those liberal values with a dose of realism about power shifts.
Right on. Think of it as blending two recipes, one for democratic ideals and one for hard-nosed power dynamics. When you mix them in the right proportions, you might actually, create a strategy that's robust enough for a rapidly
Yep,
changing
exactly.
world. That balance is key.
So, how do you think the West can achieve that balance? I mean, given how slow institutions are to change, can they really pivot without losing their core values?
Well, the challenge is huge. It's like trying to steer a massive supertanker. You can't just turn on a dime. Mearsheimer suggests that recognizing the multipolar reality is the first step. Instead of clinging to a singular mindset, the West needs to recalibrate its strategies by engaging more constructively with other power centers. But it's a necessary
That's a tough
evolution.
nut to crack. That's interesting. And when he discusses issues like the Ukraine crisis, he really ties it back to this inflexibility. It almost paints a picture of a decline accelerated by stubborn adherence to old ways.
Exactly, it's like walking into a storm with an outdated umbrella. The reliance on old doctrines not only leaves you exposed, but can even make the storm worse by provoking unintended reactions from other global actors.
Right.
It's a vivid metaphor for the stakes involved.
I suppose his critique also serves as a broader lesson. If you're stuck in your ways, you might end up driving yourself into a corner. It's an appeal for more self-awareness and adjustment in foreign policy.
Definitely. And what's compelling is that Mearsheimer isn't just skimming the surface. He digs into the historical roots of these policies. He shows how, since the end of the Cold War, a persistent belief in Western superiority has, in many ways, blinded policymakers to the genuine shifts in global power dynamics, illuminating how
historical
past
context really
triumphs
adds
sometimes
weight.
hinder future successes.
But hey, isn't there also a risk of losing sight of those core values that have defined the West for generations? I mean, isn't there some danger in completely dismissing the liberal legacy?
That's an important counterpoint. I think Mearsheimer isn't advocating for a total abandonment of Western ideals. He's arguing for a more nuanced application of those values, a sort of rebranding that adapts to our multipolar reality without sacrificing what's fundamentally important.
I get
It's more
that.
about evolution than revolution.
And when you look at it from a broader perspective, it seems like the West might have to learn from, say, the very powers it's long dismissed. Engaging with emerging nations on their own terms might actually lead to a more stable international order.
Yup, exactly. The idea is to move away from dictating terms and instead embrace a more cooperative, albeit competitive, global framework. It's like updating your software to keep up with new technology. You have to revise old codes to avoid glitches. A necessary
Yeah, that
update
really
for
sums it
survival.
up. And with figures like Mearsheimer, who have been studying these patterns for decades, it's hard to ignore his warning. His academic pedigree from the University of Chicago adds just a lot of credibility to these insights.
Absolutely. His long term perspective really drives home the point that this isn't just a temporary hiccup, it's a fundamental shift that demands a serious strategic
Right.
rethink. Drawing on decades of research really gives his arguments extra weight.
Now I wonder though, could there be a risk in overcorrecting? I mean, if the West shifts too drastically, might it lose some of its core strengths in the process?
That's a thoughtful critique. I'd say there is that risk. Mearsheimer implies that while change is necessary, it needs to be managed carefully. It's like, you're trying to adjust your course mid-journey. You have to balance between being flexible and maintaining your identity. It's a delicate dance indeed.
True. It really makes you think about the complexity of international relations today. The dynamics aren't just black and white. There's a spectrum of interests, historical baggage, and future uncertainties all coming into play.
Exactly, and that's what makes Mearsheimer's analysis so compelling. It's not a one-size-fits-all critique, but rather a call to embrace the messy reality of global power structures. It's like realizing that the world is more of a mosaic than a monolith.
Right
A
on.
mosaic where every piece matters.
And as the global stage becomes increasingly multipolar, the West's ability to adapt could determine not just its own fate, but the overall stability of global politics.
Definitely. Mearsheimer's discussion reminds us that stubbornness in foreign policy can lead to a slow decline, almost like an empire gradually fading because it never modernized its approach. A lesson that's
Yep.
as old as time yet still very current.
It's fascinating to see how his ideas resonate, urging us to think beyond conventional wisdom. It makes you wonder what new strategies could emerge if policymakers truly embraced this multipolar mindset.
Exactly, it opens up the possibility for novel alliances, diverse bilateral engagements, and more pragmatic security measures. It's a paradigm shift that's arguably coming faster than many anticipate.
Absolutely.
And it's something we'll be watching closely in the coming years.
In that sense, the conversation Mearsheimer sparks is both a warning and a guide towards rethinking structures that seem immovable.
Right, and while his critique might be seen as, controversial by some, it certainly challenges the status quo in a way that forces us to ask tough, necessary questions about our global future.
Exactly.
It's a call for increased self-reflection on the part of Western policymakers.
And ultimately, isn't that what's needed? A healthy dose of critical self-assessment before making decisions that could shape the world for decades.
Absolutely. So, while Mearsheimer's views might ruffle some feathers, they highlight that in a rapidly evolving global order, no nation can afford to be complacent.
Yes, indeed.
It's a timely reminder that adaptation is essential for enduring influence.
Well, this has been an enlightening chat. It's clear that the discussion on multipolarity is going to continue to grow in importance. I'm left wondering how exactly the West will navigate these turbulent waters in the years ahead.
For sure, it's like a real-time experiment in international relations. The decisions made now could reshape alliances and redefine power balances for the
It's
future.
definitely a topic worth
and
keeping
one
an
that
eye
sparks
on.
endless debate.
Thanks for such an engaging conversation. I feel like I've got plenty to mull over regarding these dynamics and the challenges ahead.
My pleasure. Until next time, stay curious and keep questioning those old maps when the world is redrawing the borders.
Exactly. Talk soon and take care.